Welcome, guys. This is the first descriptive video of a league within the Blood Bowl Championship Syndicate. Within this syndicate are an association of pro leagues that have draft aspects to them and two developmental leagues. The ceiling of the draft leagues will be 10 leagues at any given time, but for our purposes, for the best sort of experience, we want to have 6 leagues, and we'll get into the reason for that in a different video. As it currently stands, we're going to be covering the developmental leagues. And they're fun leagues. They are sevens leagues. One of them has an NCAA theme, that is the National Collegiate Blood Bowl Association, as well as a second league that is more of an open matchmaking format. So let's go ahead and look at that open matchmaking format logo now. It is the RCI, or the Rugby Circuit International. Now this is where you play 6 games and you try to rack up a score that is, so 6 games would be on that scoreboard like a top score in an arcade pinball or video game. You would have Real, a name such as Real Chatlin, and vampires, but Real Chatlin, and it would be parentheses season 1. So that's 6 games, and then you go season 2, another 6 games, season 3, and those 3 names would be on that scoreboard. Top score gets a video series dedicated to them and their journey, so that's kind of fun. But for our purposes, the more interesting league is the more grounded league, that is the NCBA sevens, where you're going to have a real NCAA experience as best as it can be translated to the Fumble client within the sevens sort of format. So let's go ahead and get in a little bit deeper as we go into the first descriptive slide. So reroll prices are doubled and the leader skill is banned. Why? Because sevens is best within a reroll scarce environment. And in fact, the current rule set for Blood Bowl Sevens 2020 involves these these rules that are official, and we're going to use them within these leagues for the most sevens-like experience that we can provide. Within stipulations, for instance, the client on Fumble is an 11s field. The client is also an 8-turn halves. So there are those sort of things. We're not going to house rule, for instance, throw teammate or 1-turn touchdown after we play a single season. But after that time, we may need to provide a second video to describe things fuller. But as it currently stands, we're just adapting as close to sevens as we possibly can, given the constraints. So let's move on to the next slide. So gold, you receive 600k gold each season. So season 1, you need at least 7 players. So you're gonna spend your 600 gold, 600k gold on that, and then however many rerolls you can muster, and you can maybe go above 7 players. You can buy. Well, what will remain the same from 11s to 7s is that the assistant coaches and dedicated cheerleaders, all of that remains the same in price. It'll be 10k instead of 20k in 7s. But in any case, what's interesting is once you go through that first rotation or that first season, whatever your current treasury is will deviate back to 600k gold. So what you will have to do is repurchase your players' base cost. You get to retain the skills, but you have to buy the base cost for reroll. Like, you don't have to buy a doubled version of a reroll, for an example. I'll handle that for you. But everything else is just like you're buying a new team, but you retain the skills from the prior season. But we'll get into more detail than that. This is just an introductory. Yes, you'll have 600k each season, just like mainline sevens. That's the whole point of this one. Next slide. So you get to have, this is where we deviate from standard sevens, because you'll see that there's an NCBA sevens Bretonian that is now mostly a NAF roster. Same with Slan is also involved. We actually have that team in there. We have mainline teams such as NCBA sevens Chaos Chosen and NCBA sevens Human, as well as your NCBA sevens Half Elf. So you'll see that it says Fair Secret Team. That means we're probably not going to allow you to have Daemons of Zinch, for instance. Let's move over here. Adapted on request. So all that means is it'll take me 20 minutes of my free time. I can do it real quick to make a NCBA sevens compliant roster, which is another way of saying a sevens compliant roster where rerolls are doubled out the gate. And so once I do that, I just copy and paste all the stats, all the naming nomenclature from the major leagues to make everything a little bit easier. I'll get that to you in 20 minutes. It could be any standard team, secret team, or NAF team, including Slan. So as long as it's fair in terms of the secret team, because there's some very busted secret teams out there. Next slide, please. Booyah. And this is what the field will look like in client. Allow me to slink off into a corner. Okay, so you'll see that Converse University has the mainline sevens field. That's because he uploaded the field that I gave to him, and now you see that he's going to be back to the fourth column. And that's correct. When he lines up, he's going to have 3 on his sevens line of scrimmage, that is away from midfield, and 1 player per wide zone. And then, but you just need to have the 3 on the line and the 4 everywhere else. You're just only allowed to have 1 per wide zone. And you'll see this screen mirroring whenever you're playing peekaboo. On this side, you're going to see the Hergig Hunters. And they're going to have, oh my gosh. Well, who knows why there's mowing in the afternoon in an apartment complex. It's not a 9 to 5 thing, right? But you'll always see the screen mirroring. So the Hergig Hunters, their perspective will always be what Converse University is seeing. But you will always have the first-person view of the correct place to put these things, but your opponent's side of the field will always be mirrored, okay? So the moral of the story is each team will have a chance to know where to line up properly. But whenever you're playing, so I have the proper lines, yours looks mirrored, the other person would say the same thing. That's because of the similarities in the fields. Okay, let's move on to the next slide. So it's possible to have these lines in the sand because I was able to dead reckon where the line is, and you see that it lines up pretty darn well with the dots there. Next slide, please. Oh, and this is just a better description. Okay. So that was for screen mirroring, and this shows you can have 7 max and up to 1 on each side, and then 3 on that line. That's for everybody. That's for everybody. But you already know that. If you're into sevens, if you're looking into sevens, you know why this is so much fun. So next slide, please. So you get 4 skilled players on an active roster or excelled roster will go to the pro draft with any injuries. What this is saying is, so once you have 51 SPP, you're going to have 4 skills on that player. Whatever you do, wherever you try to ferret him off to, once there's 4 skills, he is going to that pro draft. He's going to live out his best life. He's going to show off that jersey after he gets draft picked. Just like this happy guy right here, and this is the commissioner. So you could have a championship run. Remember when I said that positionals are, and players on your team, positionals and standard linemen. You can have 3 skills on 7 players on your bench, right? So you can go on to a championship run after you ferreted off all those players, and then you can go on to a dynasty championship run. Maybe you can keep that rotation going for a couple seasons before a few of the guys get 4 skills. That's an idea, and that's a little bit of gamesmanship, but that's a lot of fun, though. So we're allowing that. So at the start of each season, you're allowed to mix and match everybody from your Excel bench as well as your active roster. And essentially, if you want, you could have 7 guys with 3 skills each. But once they get that 4th skill, wherever they're hiding, active roster or the Excel, my eyes all twitching. Then you, well, my little puppet here's twitching. Then he's going to go to the pro draft at the end of that season. There is a workaround in addition to this that we're going to cover later on. But 4 skills, he's gone at the end of the season. That's all you need to know for right now on this slide. Next slide, please. 7s, 11s, get that in your mind. 7-11, 7-11. And that is your roster must start with 7 players each season. 7 seasons per player. No, 7 players each season at the start of the year. You can't have more than 11 players on an active roster in 7s. Okay, we know that that's actually limited within the rule set. I don't think you can actually go to 12. So, but it's just food for thought when you're doing your future planning. Okay, 7 up to 11. Easy to remember. Let's move along. No star players or infamous staff. That is Bugman right here. And that is like Glort Sharps, Marsh Grep, or one of the star players. I don't know. I don't even know. Grack and Crumbleberry. No Grack and Crumbleberry here. And this is the Indiana coach, Bob Knight, one of my favorites, throwing a chair onto the court in college basketball. But no Bugman and no star players are allowed to be induced. Got it? Good. Next slide. And all other inducements are standard. So you know in our major leagues, it's $300K. You have to set aside $300K if you induce a wizard. Right here, get away from me, mister. Right here, you can spend $150K for a wizard, $300K for that, just everything that's mainline prices. You're allowed to do, just no star players or Bugman. Easy to remember. Let's move along. Move along. Fouling is unrestricted, and there's a bonus here that I'm going to discuss that will be of interest to you. Just like the major leagues, after your first season in the league, you're allowed to declare your rival, and in fact, you're forced to declare a rival. And that is, during that rivalry match, there's nothing really new under the sun, except you receive 2 SPP per each permanent injury that you provide the opponent from a foul, including, I believe that's the case, and then 3 SPP for the players that you kill off a foul. So that is like a real rivalry. There's no like gamesmanship. It's just kill, 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 and crush, crush, crush. And that's the whole point of the rivalry. You get bonus points for being a sick MFer. Next slide. Okay, here's the fun stuff. You get some really interesting late season duels between teams in this format. So for each win in the standings, you receive 30 points. For each draw, you receive 10 points. For each loss, 0. Sorry, you don't earn anything for that. 3 bonus points for a shutout. 5 bonus points for a blowout, and then plus or minus for your touchdown differential. So if you have 2 wins in one game and then a 2-0 in the next game, the differential will be 4-1, and that which equals 3. So that touchdown differential would be 3 in that case. That's why it varies. For rivalry win, you get 0, but let's look at prestige points. You get to go to a better bowl based on your prestige points on the season if you don't make it to the playoff. Not many teams are going to make it to the playoff, I believe, in quartiles. But in when it comes to Major League, like the upper quartile would generally be in the playoffs. I'm going to make it even more special. And if not quartiles, then when we expand larger, we're just going to have it be eighths. The top 8th teams will be in the playoff. And then we're going to have a variety of very, very fun bowl matchings. For instance, the top 2 remaining teams with highest prestige, the best touchdown differential versus the best CAS differential, that sort of thing. That we see in DLE 7s, for instance. This is the bowl system is going to be heavily influenced by DLE 7s because they do bowls the best way, despite being locked into 7s with only human teams. Kind of disgusting. Next slide. And this is all, so everything that I talked about, and this is the indicator here, is consistent across NCBA 7s and RCI 7s. RCI is the Rugby Circuit International, and that's all that it shares in relation across itself in NCBA 7s. So it's easy to remember, right? So everything I talked about applies to both leagues. Now let's get into RCI specifics. Boom. Let me move right here. Yeah, there we go. Disembodied. You may name, based on the U.S. standard of city team, such as team name, such as you'd say Philadelphia Eagles is a perfectly compliant RCI team name. Or the English rugby naming convention of just the nickname like the Saracens, based on, I believe, London, the city of London's coat of arms with the scimitars, the Saracens. Well, no national teams, so you're not allowed to have the All Blacks, Springboks. The BCL major league teams will have national team also tourneys, and that's sort of your Olympics, your FIFA World Cup, if you will. While soccer, football naming conventions like Real Martel, that's my team, Real Martel, Mage Knights is what I named them. But Real Martel, with that name alone, is completely compliant. You don't have to have a nickname at the end. And that's how you name a team for RCI 7s. Next slide. I guess I'm going to hang out here. I'm going to float. There's open matchmaking. And there's not a fixed schedule. But like I said, you're going to record team into RCI Arcade. So let's actually double back here a little bit. Let's go back to standings, because this is very intuitive. Oh, I picked the right one right away. So 30, if you can get 6 games with all wins, it'd be 180 points. That's probably a top score right now. RCI is very new. So after 6 rotations, you'll be at the top of the leaderboard. You get a whole video series dedicated to your team. Pretty cool, huh? So we'll drop that. And that's when we record team into RCI Arcade. So everything that we've talked about is sequence, is your team A season 1. You purchase your team, you get 6 games, you record it into RCI Arcade, repeat, repeat, repeat. And that's sort of how this goes. There will be site-wide tournaments in 7s that we're going to provide the other peoples to promote the BCL, our NCBA 7s, and the RCI itself. Just giving back a little bit, but also promoting our leagues to the broader community. So next slide, please. Now, it is time to get into the NCBA 7 specifics, and I'm very excited to do this because a lot of interesting mechanics, but that make the game a lot more fun than you'd think possible. So you must be named after a U.S. or international or Blood Bowl Universe place name institution of higher learning. For instance, I don't think there are very many place name colleges besides, say, the Blood Bowl colleges being in Wizard Bowl, Dungeon Bowl. Fake names of institutions are also allowed. Okay, so that's cool. Fake names of institutions are also allowed. So if you say like Harvard is a real world one, what would be a fake version of that one? Horston's University Heroes or something like that. So that'd be like there's no university in the world called Horston's. There's not a place name in the Blood Bowl universe, but at least you're on theme. And there's only going to be 3 service academies allowed. That'd be the Army, Navy, and Air Force. We still don't have any applicants with those names just yet. And this is the sequence. Well, I should be on. We have 8 teams currently running in a circuit, and there's people waiting to get it started too. So We actually have a lot of sevens players currently. Anyways, here's the sequence. During the summer, you purchase your team. You get your one out of conference match. That's sort of that is randomly generated. So in the Discord, I'm going to roll dice, and then you're going to get your opponent off of that dice. Rinse and repeat until everyone has an out of conference opponent. I'm going to have to pause right here. Okay, so out of conference is randomly generated off the dice, publicly available. So you'll see that the process is pure. But during the inaugural season, season 1, I got so excited that I just went conferences first, but then we'll do out of conference after that. But normal seasons would be the summer out of conference match, then the 3 conference round robins in the fall. So I want to keep conferences down to 4, just a nice little round robin. And then we get to the bowl game and playoffs. So for 5 games, and then we will redshirt. So yeah, you could get 1, 4, 5 games, or up to like 8 games for the playoff rounds. We're gonna redshirt or advanced scouting or trade territoriality this season. So these are 3 functions that I'm going to dive into greater detail. Redshirt means you can break the rule. You can have a 4 skill and up player if you redshirt. You can use advanced scouting as an 11s team, as a major league team, as a draft league team, to take 1 player from your team prior to the draft that is draft eligible and dump them onto your roster or your Excel. Very powerful. Very powerful. But then you can trade your territoriality. That means someone you trade something to for something else will be able to do the advanced scouting on your 7s team. So it's very interesting mechanic right here with the 3 things that you can potentially use to your advantage. And then you have a transfer portal draft. I'm going to touch in small detail on that. Basically, if you have an injured guy that's so injured he can't do anything else and he has a skill on him and you have to cut him, say minus strength, you got to cut him. He has block and dodge. He goes into the transfer portal. He has all his injuries cleared. And guess what? You get X1 draft pick. And so you maybe get 3 injuries like that. Then you get 3 draft picks. You following? 3 injuries, 3 cuts, 3 draft picks. They all have skills. All the injuries go away. And it's completely randomized. Maybe all 3 picks are 3 in a row, first, second, third. Or maybe first, 5th, 10th. Or 9th, 10th, 11th. You don't know. It's a lottery. It's like real life transfer portal draft if you follow college football. You can repurchase and then from active plus Excel. So it just has to be 600K compliant. The skills don't count. You just have to repurchase the amount of players and re-roll to make sure that you're within 600K. Perfectly fine. Perfectly fine. Then you rinse and repeat, and then you do your out-of-conference match, your conference round robin, then bowl game. Once the league gets bigger, we might do 2 out-of-conference, 3, then bowl. So that's good fun. But this gives you an idea. You have 2-week rounds to play a match, just like any other league in the BCS. That includes the VCL, that is the Major League Draft Leagues. No penalties for a communicated forfeit. So it's like I can't play. Something came up. I still want to play in the next round. Well, or I need to rejoin next season even. No penalty for that. Just communicate it to us, please. And then there's no penalties. Next slide. We got a red shirt here. You may redshirt a player every season. These players do not count for roster repurchase cost and can exceed 3 skills without being drafted. More upon that when we hit the legendary status of 6 skills. But okay, so this is the workaround. This guy still costs also 0 for repurchase. Okay? So that means you might have 7 players and plus this 8 free guy that's sort of like your team leader without the leader skill. Your team captain without being customly made. He is just your top dog and you're going to have him for each season for as long as you can in 7s. So he doesn't count with repurchase. This is the rule that breaks the prior rule. Okay, so let's move on. Then you can do advanced scouting. We talked about that. Maybe we talked enough about it for you to understand it. You may move one player from your sevens roster directly to your major league team if you are the coach of a major league team. This action occurs prior to a major league draft and adds the player to the Excel or active roster. Okay. So pretty straightforward. You know how it goes. So let's go look back at the previous slide. So this slide means that if you're a sevens exclusive player and you're playing against teams that are 11s exclusives, that means people within the NCBA sevens that are only NCBA sevens players are at an advantage against the draft league teams. So that's nice. So I think that's actually a nice balance that doesn't hurt anything, because maybe people are doing things for different reasons, which is perfectly valid. What do they value in terms of winning, right? So let's let them focus on that. Perfectly fine. Next slide, please. Territoriality. Let's discuss it. An owner of a major team and an NCBA sevens team may trade their right to advance scout to a different major league team. That other team may add a player of their choice to their active or Excel roster from your roster that you just traded to them from sevens. So pretty cool. Next slide, please. Now we talk about the transfer portal. Okay. If you cut a player, they're added as a transfer. Oh, that's unfortunate. Draftee in the transfer portal. If they have a skill, you are allotted the same amount of picks as the player cuts, and the draft order is completely randomized. Basically, I just look at your past players, see if anything's new, add it to the transfer portal. It's much nicer if you alert me to it, but eventually I'll see it. Perfectly fine. And we'll have a real short draft to make sure that the teams that are most damaged, because look at this, mostly teams that have a skill that are damaged are likely going to use the transfer portal. Well, guess what? You get patched up from the transfer portal. You're the guys that get picks. Nobody else gets picks. So this is a nice balancing mechanic that keeps people in. Oh, and another thing. I didn't make a slide for this, so let's discuss it now. There's such a thing as porting. So if you have a blocker type player, as I use with the nomenclature, you're going to see the nomenclature of the team like big on S blocker. You can transfer that team, that orc team, to have big on S blocker to be a vampire blitzer. Okay? Or you would have the blitzer type of orc become a vampire blitzer. The passer type orc becomes a vampire passer. The catcher, you could have a goblin become a catcher. We're very loose and easy with porting teams. Can it be manipulated? Maybe, but we want you to have fun, so we're going to let you change roster types if that is your angle for the next season. And you can retain your name too of your team. Perfectly fine, perfectly valid. Next slide. Let's bump up here. Wear this suit. If your player becomes a legend mid-season, that is the Galloping Ghost right there, Red Grange of the Illinois University. If your player becomes a legend mid-season, they may finish out the season, and if redshirted, are only allowed to play one more season and can longer be redshirted and sent to them and must be sent to the major league draft. Okay, so say season 5, there's a player A, and player A gets his sixth skill game 5, and then he finishes out the season game 6, bowl game, perfectly fine, perfectly normal, because he's been redshirted up to this point. Problem being that he must go to the draft. So, okay, yeah, I guess it's all on this slide. So you finish out the year, and he can be redshirted one more time and play the next season, but after that next season, he's off to the draft, he's gone, he's in the major leagues. He gets a week sort of BS literature degree, off he goes. Next slide. And that's it. You know how to join and play NCBA sevens. You can contact me in the comments below. and you know how to join the Rugby Circuit International, we're going to have a site-wide tournament to promote both our leagues through Sevens tournament. So that should be fun. And that about covers it. Let's see. I think that's it. Yes, it is. Okay, guys. See you next time. We're going to cover another league next time. If not, we're going to cover some games before then, I think. Bye for now.